News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, with the last show on the last day of 2023. And many would say, thank goodness, because this has not been the best of years for our industry and maybe for yours. I'm not sure. But I'm Bob Sokoler. Again, I host the show. I also own the Sokoler team over at Remax Properties East. Joining us for this show, we've got some great people. Randy Rocky, who is already on the road this morning on a Sunday morning. He's co-owner of Swan Financial. You can reach Randy anytime at 645-0736. And then also Lee Harris, who's legal counsel over at Limestone Title and Escrow, LLC. And you can reach, and fellow realtor, she knows her stuff. She's very accessible via her cell phone, which I'm about to give out to both realtors and to anybody else who's listening. 649-7964. Hi, folks. Good to have you here.
Good morning.
If you're thinking about selling in the near future, good morning. If you're thinking about selling in the near future, I would love to be able to help you. All you need to do is call me. It's free, no obligation analysis. We can talk on the phone via Zoom or in person, which I'd love to do. Come out and we talk. You can reach me anytime on my cell phone, 376-5483, or you can go to bobsellslouisville.com. All right, so we are still doing our Zoom shows via the COVID, even though it's still back up there again. COVID's back out. Be careful. Watch hands, wash, and all that stuff. Let's go to Lee Harrison. By the way, you can see a rebroadcast of the show by going to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's LouisvilleAnswers.com, where it's our YouTube channel, which actually will have a video version of this, and you'll be able to see Randy driving in his car. We start with Lee at Limestone. Ann's ex-husband recently passed away without a will. And based on the deed, the house will go into her name and a quarter into her son's name and a quarter into her daughter's name. And so here's the question, Lee. Ann is wondering if she moves back into the house and by chance gets into an argument with either of her two kids who do not live there, could they force her to leave the house and sell it? An interesting question. Lee?
Very interesting question.
Yeah.
Well, so they're all on title. And so the way that it's kind of a in-depth legal question, really, but there's something called a suit for partition. And basically, if more than one person owns a property, then you could potentially go to the court and ask for the property to be partitioned. If it's a house which cannot be partitioned, like 10 acres could be partitioned into 5 acres to her, 2.5 to each child. Right. Based on the percentages. A house cannot. So then the court would either say, okay, you have to sell it and split up the proceeds according to your ownership interest, or, perhaps they would come to some resolution where she could buy them out, or she could, come up with some other way to stay there. But yes, there is, it's a long shot, but there is sometimes if there's a dispute, you can go to court to get it resolved that way. Can
they force her out of the house if she moves back in?
Well, they'd have to go through that court process to do that.
Yeah.
They all have the rights to the house, to some percentage degree.
Yeah.
And that means, yeah.
So I hear yes.
They couldn't just force her.
No, but
if they went to court and they won, yes.
I got it. All right. All right, we move over to Randy Rocky, Swan Financial. Nicole wrote in this email. She said she's been watching the federal funds rate hike or lack of hike. The Fed did not raise the last time. And she is wondering if the short-term rates are not, as we've heard say, not connected to long-term mortgage rates, why is everybody predicting that the long-term rates were going to fall? You follow the genesis? I think that's a really smart question she's asking.
Yes. So great question. Yeah, they don't and they do. So that's really not a great answer, but they kind of do and don't all at the same time. But I think the reason that she feels and people feel like that we are going to drop in rates is, again, there is a big feeling there's a recession coming. And that with that, the only way to get out of a recession is to drop the rates, and housing has to really move. It's one of the key indicators on getting out of recession and getting everything moving again. So the only way to do that is to drop interest rates. But again, Bob, I'm at 4.8%, 30-year fixed, 5.96 APR, NMLS number 26362, and we are absolutely rolling with the 4.8 rate right now. It's been we really are becoming an industry leader and disrupting the market with the rate. So just call me and we'll get you taken care of at a very low rate right now.
Yeah, we'll give out that number in just a few minutes, folks. If you want, this is legit. This is not a pie in the sky thing. There's some interesting caveats to this, of course, but everything has a caveat these days.
Yes.
A reminder, this is something new, a reminder for all of you. If you have tried selling your house in the past and it hasn't sold, and you're wondering what's the problem, you need to check in with me. And to do that, make note of this new URL. Here we go. bobhasbuyers.com. So go to bobhasbuyers.com. We have a lot of buyers who are looking for homes. bobhasbuyers.com. Fill out the form, hit submit, it'll come to me. Back over to Lee Harris. Lee, you're going to love this question over at Limestone Title. Christmas holidays behind us, of course, but not forgotten. Stephanie sent us an email with an unusual problem. Stephanie says she waited until after Christmas to send the email because down the street, her neighbor went nuts this year, filling up the entire lawn with inflatables. You know what those are, right? Those are those
Yes.
blow-up things, right?
Yep.
She writes, they were tacky and an eyesore, and she's wondering if there is no homeowner association in her neighborhood, how could she make sure that next year she doesn't have to see these inflatables? Can she report the homeowners to the city? And I have some follow-up information. So, Lee, legally, is there anything that a homeowner can do?
Stephanie, I think my best answer is you're going to have to drive a different way if you don't want to see them, because unless there is some city ordinance that says you can't have something in your yard that's higher than a certain height, or my best friend has a Santa Claus that's higher than her roof. She loves it.
Oh.
I think it's crazy. It's huge. But she unless there's some city ordinance, which I doubt there is because it's a temporary thing, and they're inflatables and they're Christmas decorations, and but without an HOA that says you can't put certain things up, you're probably not going to have a lot of luck getting anybody to take any action on that.
Plus, you'll be labeled a Scrooge.
Right.
In
You don't want to
the
be the Ebenezer of the neighborhood.
So this is a thing, folks, and those of us listening to us may have an opinion on this. A recent Instagram poll of homeowners, 21.4% of those responding said they loved holiday inflatables, but in a surprising 77+% said they were tacky. In another, no, really. So there you go. In another Instagram poll, homeowners were asked, white lights or multicolored bulbs. What do you two prefer? Lee, just
White lights.
white. How about you, Randy?
I like white lights.
White lights.
Yes,
Okay.
white lights.
All right. So 36% of those responding said multicolor. 64% said white light. So you're in the majority of what the poll showed. A reminder: if you want to see what our reviews and of us, our Sokoler team, are, you can go to LouisvilleZillow.com or LouisvilleGoogle.com and read our reviews. We're really proud of them. Back over to Randy Rocky over at Swan Financial. Ryan desperately wants to get out of his apartment and buy a home. He says in this email, the interest rates are what's really stopping him. And he's wondering if interest rates are in the 6 to 7% range and he buys a house and interest rates go down to 5. And I know, Randy, you're going to say you're already below that with 4. I got that. But he wants to know what would the cost, and I think a lot of potential sellers want to know this. What would the cost if they lock into a loan now in the 6s, and it goes down? What's the cost to refinance a loan on average?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. So, in a lot of situations, it's zero. In a lot of situations, it can be as much as 3% of the loan amount. And that the difference in those two is, Bob, is that your interest rate will be a little lower if you help with 3%. So let's say you help 3% of the loan amount, then your interest rate will be lower. But usually on a refinance, you can come with that with no money out of your pocket. So there's just a couple ways to look at doing that. So it will go towards the principal balance of your mortgage if you add that 3% in most situations where you don't have to bring any money to the closing table at all.
So are you rolling in? Are you rolling in the refinance
That's right.
costs? Yep. Okay.
That's right. And it takes the principal balance of your mortgage up. So let's say on 3%, you have a $200,000 loan currently, is what you owe on the house. And then you roll into 3% to get a better interest rate than you would be at $206,000 when you refinance. But if there's, if those numbers make sense because the interest rate is lower and it makes sense payment wise and all that, then there's a lot of times that we do go with the lower interest rate. And there's a lot of times we go with the zero money and not having your principal balance go up. And we go in that scenario. So it really depends on your scenario, how long you're going to be there. Yeah. There's a whole lot of things that go into play in that.
But typically your monthly payment will go down if you're doing the refi and the rates drop to a good number.
Yeah, that's another great question. If they don't go down, then there's really very few situations that make sense for you to refinance.
Right. Gotcha.
Right.
Back over to Lee Harris at our Limestone Title and Escrow Group. Margaret's ex-husband died, owing several hospitals large medical bills. Margaret and her ex-husband still both own the house jointly. We're having a lot of these questions today. I guess it's end of year. He was living there alone and she had moved out. Now, Margaret is wondering if the hospitals, who apparently have bills in her ex-husband's name, can come after this house that Margaret owns and with her deceased ex-husband and try to collect on the medical bills by taking over the house and selling it. Lee?
Well, if they're both on title, then if he has bills that are owed out of his estate, and that property needs to be sold through the estate, then typically any debts are paid. Most wills will even state, funeral expenses and debts come out first. And then if there's any claims on the estate, like medical bills that are filed because of the estate being made public, then they probably can take his portion at the very least if they're both on title of that property. She undoubtedly has some kind of a settlement agreement, I would assume, which may help. So it's kind of fact specific, but if he has a property and it's in his estate, then that's always a potential that the bills can be paid out of that.
What if there's no will that was, and it has to go through probate?
Yeah. So if there's no will, then somehow the property is eventually going to have to be sold. So it'll have to either be an administrator appointed, who will then take that through probate. Sometimes you can do an affidavit of descent in more rare cases, but at some point it's going to have to transfer title, either to his heirs or to to a buyer so that they can pay off the bills. But yeah, it's somehow the title is going to transfer from the deceased person to someone else.
So, and I was not aware that medical institutions will go after a house, even if the party who was being treated has passed away.
They can go after. I mean, if you have any assets in your estate and you have any debts, credit cards or medical bills or anything like that, if you have any assets, they could go after them. Sometimes they don't make a claim, but the first thing that an administrator or executor does is pays the decedent's debts, and then whatever's left over goes to their heirs. Yeah.
Okay, we move over in just a moment. We're going back over to Randy Rocky. Coming up when we come back from the break, we have solved the age-old question: what temperature should you set your thermostat at in the wintertime? We'll poll Randy and Lee. But a reminder, continuing with us, Lee Harris, who's legal counsel over at Limestone Title and Escrow. The phone number for her to get to her cell directly, 502-649-7964. For Randy Rocky and that interest rate we talked about a little bit ago, this is important. You want to jot Randy's number down. It's 502-645-0736. If you are thinking of selling your home in the near future, next year, this year, it doesn't matter. Just call me. I'm more than happy to come out for a free, no obligation analysis. We talk about the plan and what needs to be done to get it sold. You can reach me at 376-5483 or go to bobsellslouisville.com. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show. Thank you very much, Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank fame. We appreciate your endorsement and we appreciate your being a mentor. We continue to the top of the hour with Randy Rocky over at Swan Financial. You can reach Randy to get a home loan, which does a great job. 645-0736 is his direct number. Lee Harris for closings. Great place, and you got to try the cookies over at Limestone Title and Escrow. You can reach Lee, who is legal counsel there, 649-7964. And if you are thinking of selling your home now or in the near future, please don't hesitate. Give me a call. I'd love to talk to you. You can give me a buzz at 502-376-5483 for a free no-cost obligation. No obligation. All we got to do is sit down and talk, or in person or on the phone, or you can go to bobsellslouisville.com. And we, many of us, are always wondering, what should the temperature be when it comes time to set the thermostat during the winter months? Lee, let's start with you. Do you have a preferred temperature?
Yes, it's very different than my husband's. He would probably put it at about 68. I probably am a little hot. I'd probably say 70.
Okay. So you like a little hotter there.
Yeah.
All right. Randy, how about you and Tracy?
I like it about 70. She likes it about 79, but we stay at 70.
Wow, that's a discrepancy. No kidding. Well, according to,
Yeah, I'm serious.
yeah, I'm sure. According to the Department of Energy, setting your thermostat to the lowest comfortable temperature, which is typically 68 degrees in the winter, helps slow down heat loss for homes with a regular furnace or baseboard heating system. However, that's not the case for homes with heat pumps. Dialing down the thermostat too much can make a heat pump less effective. Plus, everyone has a different comfort zone, as we've just described, because 68 degrees can be an ideal temperature for a house in terms of reducing energy consumption, but it doesn't mean it's right for everybody. Some people may prefer to get this to set the thermostat slightly higher at 70 degrees, and that's okay. So the best place to locate a thermostat is on the interior wall that it experiences the natural airflow of the home, not an exterior wall. And I would dare say, Randy, to keep peace in the house, you may want to go up a little higher than your 70, but that's 68 to 70 is generally where the suggestion is to save as much money as you possibly can.
That's good news because we just put in a heat pump, so I can't wait
good.
to tell my husband.
Oh, very good.
2 degrees.
Yeah. I will tell you that I like it 68, but I have seen it go down to 67, but I get cold at 67. It's amazing. 1 degree.
Mhm.
So, all right. Back
Yeah.
to the questions we have. This one again for Lee Harris over at Limestone Title and Escrow. Amber wrote us with this heart-wrenching email. She says her husband is 71, her daughter is 45. She says they really do not get along on the husband and the daughter are at odds all the time. And Amber is asking how she can make sure that her husband does not write their daughter out of the will if Amber, the wife, passes away first. Heart-wrenching. So what would you suggest? Is there a way to make sure the husband can't do that? You're shaking your head yes, so I presume that it is.
Well, what it's gonna be Amber that's gonna have to take the proactive stance here, because if she has some assets of her own, what she can do is set those up in a trust, and that trust, the beneficiary of that trust could be her daughter. So no matter what, after she passes, if a trustee takes over, then she can make sure that her assets, and she can also have a will, of course,
Yeah.
go to her daughter. She can't necessarily prevent her husband from doing what he does with his money, after she passes, but she can certainly take care of her daughter in her own way.
What about the house? Since if it's in Kentucky, with our courtesy laws apply, it's half and half. So she leaves her half to the daughter. Is that how that would work?
Well, if it's in survivorship, then it would go to the husband and it would be his house.
Oh.
Totally. Yeah. So it depends. She'd have to look at her deed to see how if they're in survivorship.
I got
If
it.
so, then it's his house upon death.
That's why it's so important when you're buying a house to make sure you have the deed written in the correct format that you want,
Yes.
especially for kids, if you've got kids. Back over to Randy Rocky at Swan Financial. Justin is planning to buy a house, his first one in 2024. And he says in this email he is not sure what his credit score is. So he's wondering how should he go about, and this is a good question for anybody, how do you go about checking your credit score before applying for a loan? Where would you go, Randy?
I wouldn't go anywhere besides going to an actual company, and I'll tell you why. Because when something's free, it's usually there's a reason why. So
Yeah.
freecreditreport.com places are usually not very accurate, and I would have your credit pulled by a mortgage company.
So start shopping for a mortgage company. Swan would be one of them, and they can pull, and it doesn't hurt their credit if you pull a credit score.
In my opinion, it doesn't. Now, there's all kinds of different theories, and the reason I say that is you're buying an asset, and I don't think the credit reports ding you for that. But there's a lot of people that disagree with that statement. I want to throw a disclaimer out there that it could possibly hurt your credit, but or lower your score. But I don't think it does.
Okay. Lee Harris, Limestone Title. This question comes from Brian. He sent us an email. His wife, Rachel, received a $1.5 million payout from her employer when she retired. How about that? That must have been some bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
1.5 million. So Brian says they've been married 48 years. Things have not been as good as he had hoped in recent years. And he's wondering if he files for divorce, is he entitled to 50% of that employer payout?
Well, that's a good question, Brian. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to answer than just those facts. So um, it's probably best, to consult a family law attorney about that, because everybody's situation is certainly different. And a lot of it depends on, of course, the length of the marriage, which a 48-year marriage is long, and then what other assets you may have. And so there's a lot more factors that go into than just, a simple yes or no.
Yeah, so I hear you saying we really can't go down that road. There's not that much information that
Right.
we can do. But I
Yes.
think your suggestion is to talk to a family.
Family law attorney, and
Attorney?
they'll be able to give him all his options on that. Yes.
Okay, got it. Back over to Randy Rocky. Elizabeth listens to our show all the time. She has heard us talk about home buyers not needing a 20% down payment. That's right. And she's asking how
Right.
little of a down payment can she and other home buyers get away with when buying a home? What's the bottom line on
Yeah,
that?
we can go zero money down, but just you pay more in interest rate. But we can go as little as zero down.
Zero down. Now, is that a special loan at that point, FHA or something along those lines?
Yes, it's an FHA loan, and we can go through a housing corporation depending on the state, or we can do FHA loan. They have zero money down, just a regular FHA loan. But again, you would pay a higher interest rate. But in a lot of situations, that's what people want to do because they don't have any money down.
So give me an example. When you say a higher interest rate, are we talking about
Yeah.
1 point or how much are we looking at?
Usually about 2.5 points difference, 2 to 2.5 points difference on a no
Okay.
money down home.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Back over to Lee Harris at Limestone Title and Escrow for this question. Ethan bought a new home from a builder 4 years ago and recently discovered some foundation issues. There are cracks and water seeping through the basement walls. He says he wants to go after the builder to repair the cracks and leaks, but a friend of his says it's too late. The home warranty was only for a year, and Ethan is wondering in this email, is he out of luck? What would you say on that? That could happen to a lot of people who own new
Yes,
homes. Yeah.
that's a really good question, Ethan, because most of the builder contracts will have, generally they'll give you a 1-year written or verbal warranty on the work, and that means that during that year they will come back and fix whatever is wrong. Of course, you have to know that it's wrong in order to ask them to do that. So depending on how strong the language of the limited warranty is in the builder's contract, it's possible that he could argue that it is not a 1-year thing, but a 1 year from when he found out about it, which is the discovery rule, in which case he could say, well, I just found out about it last month, so I should have more time to bring a breach of contract or a negligence type of claim outside of that limited warranty.
Got it. So, and this is an eye opener for anybody who has a new home, is that it may not be just a 1 year. And I know there were some builders at one point they were offering 10-year on structure, but again, it depends on each builder that you're dealing with. A reminder, we love our listeners, we love our sellers, we love our buyers. And if you want to see what sellers say when we have a closing, because I interview a lot of them, go to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com, LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. Back over to Randy Rocky at Swan Financial. Cynthia sent us an email saying she is a little behind on her finances, and she was wondering, with the holidays having just come around and now New Year, what happens if she misses a mortgage payment? Randy.
Detrimental to your credit. So I
Yeah.
don't recommend doing that at all. Yes. Very, very tough if you miss a mortgage payment.
So, we've all lived through 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and there were foreclosures, short sales. What's the going principle now for a mortgage company? I know it differs from mortgage company to mortgage company, but how long can a homeowner live in a house before the mortgage company starts putting together paperwork to have them evicted and take over the house at this point? Do you know?
Usually it's when you go 90 to 120 days late, and they typically start the process, within 2 or 3 months after they get in they're in that scenario. And so usually the time you are not paying to the time you lose a home is within, 12 to 18 months.
So the obviously the would be the best thing not to be late, but if she's late right now at the very minimum, it's going to impact her credit, is what you're saying, right?
Right.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right. I wish you the best on that one. Who knows?
Yes.
It's a tough time of the year. Recent poll, going back over to Lee Harris over at Limestone, recent poll indicated 19% of home buyers bought a home based on the community that was, if it was pet friendly. Danielle wrote us an email explaining she has 2 small dogs, but found out that several condo associations in town have rules against having more than 1 dog. And
Yes.
she really wanted to live in a couple of those condo communities. She's wondering, is there anything she can do to get the approval for 2 dogs if they require that they only have 1 dog? What are her options at this point, Lee?
Yes. So condo associations are run by the people who live in the condos. So they all have bylaws, and those bylaws state how they can change their rules. So one thing is, maybe this rule is really old, and maybe a lot of people in there would like to have 2 dogs, or even have 2 dogs. Maybe they're just kind of skirting the rules and nobody's enforcing it. So one thing you can do is you can go to the powers that be, the board, the president of the HOA or the property manager, and say, hey, is there any way to put on an amendment to see if we can get this rule changed? And if they change it, then that's great. There are of course, some animals are considered service animals. So sometimes if the person needs the animal for their physical or mental disability, sometimes they can get a service animal certification and then prove to the condo association that they need those animals, and then they're not considered pets. So there's a statute that says what you have to go through in order to prove that rightfully. But also sometimes condo associations, maybe don't even enforce the rules. So it might be one thing to ask around and see if this rule is sort of even being enforced. And if not, maybe talk to the people to see if you can get sort of a special dispensation. That's probably the
Best thing to do.
least likely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
We are out of time. Hopefully that answered the question. Our thanks to Randy Rocky over at Swan Financial. You can reach Randy at 645-0736. Also, Lee Harris, legal counsel, Limestone Title and Escrow. So you can apply for the loan at Swan. You can get your loan closed at Limestone. You can reach Lee at 649-7964. And if you think of selling your home, I would love to be able to help you, at least meet with you, talk with you. Free, no obligation. We come up with a plan. You can decide what you want to do. You can reach me anytime on my cell phone, 376-5483, or go to bobsellslouisville.com. Have a great start of your 2024. We'll see you next Sunday right here on News Radio 840 WHAS.
Happy New Year.